Hi, this is Reggie Mara. It's May 7th, 2026. And I'd like to take a few minutes to take a deeper dive into each of the 10 sessions of the forthcoming class for our grandchildren and theirs, navigating shadow, us versus them, and other threats to democracy. The class starts on May 31st. All the details are in the link provided with this video. I'll cut to the chase. Again, 10 sessions. The first one is an introduction, and in there we'll really clarify, get clear on what the course is and what it's not. Basically, what it's not is an opportunity or an invitation to come in and whine and complain about how things are. There'll be a little bit of room for that, but that's not what we're doing. We'll unpack some language, what we mean by truth, what we mean by freedom, what we mean by love. Um, we'll take a look at the basic premise of the course, which is that all human beings have dignity. Um, and we'll also give you an overview of a shorthand into development. There are over 50 years of developmental research that we have to work with nowadays. And whether one knows about development or not, and no matter what one thinks about it, it takes place. It can take place. And then we'll take a look at what we mean by shadow as well. So let's get the language clear in that first session and to set the trajectory for the rest of the course. In the second session, we'll consider whether the United States Constitution is sacred scripture, as some people seem to think it is, whether it's an 18th century relic, as some others think it might be, and we'll see if there's something in between. We'll look at how hard it is to amend it, take a look at how Article 5 of the Constitution was written. We'll look at some of the counter-majoritarian aspects of it, such as the disproportionate Senate. Small states and large states have the same number of representatives, senators in the Senate, and some other things that have not caused, but have helped us get to where we are today. In the third session, we'll take a look at America's foundational and subsequent subjugations, beginning with the subjugation of women, of the indigenous peoples of the North American continent, of Africans, and then subsequently African Americans. And then we'll look moving forward at how we've subjugated other groups such as the Vietnamese, the Iraqis, and others. We'll trace the history of lessons not learned over decades, and we could argue centuries of not learning. Excuse me. In session 4, we'll take a look at the vote, the right to vote. Some would say it should be an obligation. And we'll look at the history of who wants free and fair elections and wants everyone, every US citizen, to vote, who doesn't want that, and why. We'll go back as far as the very beginning when women, obviously indigenous peoples and enslaved peoples, could not vote in this country, and we'll move into the current days when we find certain groups trying to make it more difficult to vote and other groups trying to make it easier to vote. And we'll look at the myths of voter fraud in American history and the reality of voter suppression. In session 5, we'll consider what sociologists have called the tyranny of the minority, and we'll look at it specifically through 20th and 21st century realities that involve the Christian right, Project 2025, which we'll take a brief look at, and how Donald Trump has used and has been used by both the Christian right and Project 2025. In session 6, we'll look at the damage that has been done from 2017 forward. We're not saying that the only time damage has been done in this country is from 2017 forward, but the trajectory, the intensity, and the speed of what's been done is pretty much unprecedented for this country. And it'll be brought up to what's going on the day we actually engage that session. In session 7, we'll look at some of the language that gets bandied about by folks on both the political left and the political right. And I don't like using those phrases because they're kind of generalizations, but for this moment, I'm going to just use those because pretty much, I'm guessing, know what they mean. But who are, quote, the elites? What it means to be woke, where that word came from historically in the United States, and what's the history of being woke and how it's been misused, both by people who think they're woke, not all of them, but some people who think they're woke, and then attacked by people who are against wokeness. We'll look at how then DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, plays into that. And we'll also look at critical race theory and other easy to misconstrue and criticize concepts. Just as an aside, most of the people that I've spoken to who are vocally criticizing the word woke, excuse me, and DEI, and especially critical race theory, when asked what it is they mean by those things that they're criticizing, cannot answer that question, cannot explain what they mean. So I want to clarify all that language. In session 8, we'll take a look at the 14th Amendment, at times considered the pesky 14th Amendment, since it provides for birthright citizenship. It provides for the federal governments being able to step in if the states try to deny certain rights to certain groups of people. And it also looks at the ongoing tension, which can be a healthy tension, between states' rights and the federal government. And we'll see what happens when we ask each other, are you more in favor of states' rights, more in favor of the federal government? That's actually a trick question, so I won't give away the answer until you show up in class to discuss it. So again, the 14th Amendment and states' rights versus the federal government is what we'll do in session 8. And in session 9, which we're entitling "And That's Not All," is basically prior to 2016 and post 2028. In other words, both before Donald Trump became president of the United States and when he leaves, assuming that he doesn't try to stay beyond what's legal, we'll look at what the country and the planet were facing before he had anything to do with it in any official way. Generally speaking, we'll call these issues the meta crisis, but they include, and we'll explain what that means, planetary ambivalence, which is shorthand for global warming and climate change, the problems with corporate personhood and governance. We'll speak about the lack of health and caring, or why America is the only why America is the only kind of democratic country on the planet that does not provide healthcare for all of its citizens, increasing income and wealth disparities, unprecedented levels of depression, anxiety, and addiction, and also suicide, especially, but not only among our young people, and other things. And I'm not going to list them all here, again, that were in place prior to 2016, and that have been either ignored or made worse since 2016, and that will still be on our plates to address and resolve post 2028. That's a really important session, as they all are. And then in session 10, the final session, which will, kind of just calling ownership and integration, we'll take a broader look at who and how we are as people, as citizens, the stories we tell, what we tend to miss, that's shadow stuff, our impact, who we think our people are, and how we're in relationship with everything that we covered in the first 9 sessions and with the rest of our lives. A quick note, these are 2-hour sessions, so 10 2-hour sessions. The final half hour of each session will be spent engaging some of those questions, who we think we are, what we might be missing. So we're going to hold ourselves as responsible in this session about our own development, our own worldviews, as opposed to what's out there that we want to criticize or praise or blame or whatever it is. So there'll be a little bit of our own self-reflection, a little bit of acknowledging our own developmental worldview as we go through this. So that's enough for now. Again, this is Reggie Mara. It's May 7th, 2020. 26. We'll begin this class on May 31st. It's 10 Sundays, no class on July 5th. The sessions are 2 hours from 1 to 3 Eastern Time, and all of the information, excuse me, that you need is available in the link provided with this video. So thanks for sitting through a slightly longer video, but some folks like to get everything in one fell swoop as opposed to short, 4 or 5 minute chunks at a time. All right. There is a way to get in touch with me if you have questions about this. Just go to the link that describes the class and you'll see a link to get in touch with me as well. Thank you for listening and viewing if you're viewing as well. And I look forward to getting going with this class on May 31st. Take care.